One of the things I wanted to talk about today, since the Olympics were going on and we've been talking about that for like the first 30 minutes, how people look at human potential and how people look not only human potential in terms of like humans in general, but also like their own being. And I think people are way too quick to jump to the conclusion that whenever there's like a special athlete, whenever there's somebody who's really good at what they do, a lot of people jump to the genetic argument that they're genetic freaks, they're genetic outliers, they were born to do what they're doing. I think there definitely is a time and place for that where that is the case. But more often than not, I hear people making this argument when they haven't done anything that special in their life. I actually did a video about this a while ago on my YouTube, but what I said in that video that tripped a lot of people up was I said something along the lines of LeBron James isn't better at you at basketball because he's a genetic freak or because he's a genetic outlier. LeBron James is better than you at basketball because that dude works harder and practices harder and knows how to practice than you probably ever will. You could take away any genetic gift that LeBron James has, and he's still going to smoke you in basketball. You could pick darts, just like a hypothetical scenario. Let's just assume starting tomorrow, me and LeBron James are going to practice for 3 months straight. All we're going to practice is darts or bowling or whatever. And you have to bet on me or LeBron James. I'm guessing most people are picking LeBron James. You just don't get to that level. You don't get to the NBA. You don't get to being the best player in the NBA, one of the all-time greats, without knowing how to get good. And knowing how to get good translates to so many disciplines. This is why it doesn't surprise me. Like I remember one time on a Counter-Strike subreddit, somebody posted a video of like a defensive end on the Baltimore Ravens playing Counter-Strike, and he tabbed at one point so you could see his rank, and he was ranked really high. And everybody on the subreddit was like so confused, like, Jesus Christ, this guy's in the NFL and he's really good at Counter-Strike? And they were all confused. I'm like, no shit. I mean, unless he's literally just wasting time. But if this dude gives any fucks at all, of course he's good. He knows how to get good at shit. They're really good at this. And this is what irritates me about people. Like, a dude on his couch eating Cheetos is like, bro, that's all genetics. I'm like, you couldn't run a 10-minute mile. What are you talking about? If you're second place, if you're Kevin Durant, if you're also in the NBA, and you're like, hey, man, I'm not as good as LeBron James because of genetics, I'll listen to your argument because you're already amongst the best. But you have so many people who have never, like, they're not even at a collegiate level, maybe even like a community college level of athletic proficiency, and they're like, bro, it's all genetics. And one of the things that I think really kind of proves this point is that the bar or the goalposts for what qualifies as a genetic outlier is always changing. Nobody that makes this argument is like, this right here, this, any higher and you're a genetic outlier. Because if they did, they'd be fucked. Because the Olympics, any sport ever throughout time would prove that wrong. We're always readjusting our expectations of what is possible for humans. Take a look at this. Olympic gold winning vaults 80 years apart. I'll let this play through a couple of times. 1932 right here. He did basically nothing. And then 2012, he did like 70 flips. In 1932, this guy was a genetic outlier. That guy was a freak. He won gold. Do you really think people at the time were like, I could do that? Probably not, because he won a gold medal. Back then, this was crazy. They're like, look at him go. Oh my God, look how flat his body is. He looks like Superman. Was Superman invented by then? I don't know. But if it was, they would say, dude, he looks like Superman. He barely even touched the vault. Like, look at that. He barely touched it. Fast forward 80 years. Now this guy is our genetic outlier. This guy is the genetic freak. This guy was born with it. Today, 5-year-olds can do this shit, right? You go to any gymnastics gym in Atlanta, I bet half the kids in there, they're like, what are you talking about, dude? They're already doing backflips. They're doing spinny shit like that. Doing handstands, press hands. They're doing all this crazy shit. Here's another one. Look at that, dude. She touches the, what is that thing called? The vault platform? She touches the vault platform and just falls over. This lady was a genetic freak. Girls looked at her and were like, man, one day I'll be able to do that. Fast forward to London in 2012. Look at that shit. Now she's the genetic freak. She's the genetic outlier. The point being, it always adjusts. Everything adjusts. There's a video that Tony Hawk did on YouTube where he just drives around, finds random people skateboarding, and he's like, hey, do a kickflip. And they do a kickflip. And if they nail it, he gives them some free gear, right? But in that video, he was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, we're driving around, we see all these random kids. I yell out, do a kickflip, and they do it. He's like, that's just a trick in the bag nowadays. He's like, when I was a kid, if you could do a kickflip, you were the coolest kid in town because you were the only kid that could do it. So whenever people are making these genetic arguments, you have to pick a lot. You have to set a bar. You don't get to keep adjusting your bar for genetic outliers every time the extraordinary becomes ordinary. Because that's what humans do.